KREM 2 News begins now.
Thank you for joining us on KREM 2 Plus. I'm Tim Pham. This is your KREM 2 News Week in Review. Join us as we take a closer look at some of the biggest stories in the Inland Northwest this past week.
When Brian Kohberger chose to stand in silence in his arraignment this morning, that meant he chose to say nothing or take a stance on being guilty or not guilty. And by doing this, the judge must then enter a not guilty plea on his behalf. According to the indictment from the grand jury, Brian Kohberger faces 5 charges, 1 count for burglary and 4 counts of first-degree murder. This morning, the judge entered a not guilty plea on Kohberger's behalf on all these charges. Then we heard what the maximum penalties are if he is found guilty of all charges in a consecutive sentence.
You could be facing 10 years in prison, followed by 4 consecutive life sentences or death penalties, fines of up to $200,000 and $20,000 to be paid directly to the families.
We're still waiting to find out if this is going to be a death penalty case. We'll know more in the next 60 days. Why then? That's the deadline for the Latah County prosecutors to file their intent to seek the death penalty. We know there's a strong possibility this will be a death penalty case. That's because the county entered an agreement months ago to find a defense attorney who is qualified to represent a client who could face the death penalty. The arraignment this morning wasn't Kohberger's only hearing today. He returned to the court about 30 minutes later for 2 additional hearings focused on the gag order in the trial and a motion to compel discovery. The gag order was put in place by the original judge in this case. Today was a scheduling hearing for 2 different issues. The first, the Gonsalves family attorney wants clarity so he can speak on behalf of his clients.
I'm just addressing a couple of clarifications and amendments that would allow myself as an attorney to speak on behalf of my clients.
The second was a media coalition fighting for more public information to be released in the case. The judge did not make any decisions today on the gag order, but he scheduled both motion hearings on June 9th. Now, the trial for Brian Kohberger will be here before you know it. Today, the judge scheduled the start of that trial on October 2nd. Now, defense attorney Ann Taylor told the judge she expects the trial will last between 4 and 6 weeks. Reporting in Moscow, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
I've been here at the Latah County Courthouse all day, and about 10 minutes before the suspect's arraignment started, we saw the Gonsalves family walk into the courthouse. You see here Steve and Christy Gonsalves, Kaylee's parents, Olivia, Kaylee's sister, as well as Shannon Gray, the family attorney. As soon as the arraignment began, you could see just how difficult this day is for the families. I was actually sitting right behind the Gonsalves family as they watched the suspect sit just feet away from them. I could also hear that family say it wasn't respectful for the judge to mispronounce Kaylee and Xana's name. Also in the courtroom was Kaylee's 3-month-old niece, who she never had the chance to meet. The family's attorney texted me after today's arraignment and told me that today is just the beginning of a long journey for the families. Reporting in Latah County, I'm Tim Pham, KREM 2 News.
People I spoke to today say they want justice in this case. If the suspect is the person responsible for killing 4 University of Idaho students last November, then today's court appearance is one step closer to bringing him to justice. People say Moscow is small in design, which makes the loss of 4 young lives felt that much more.
It's a very quiet town. I wouldn't really expect something like that to happen here of all places.
Braden Lingle says suddenly everyone was talking about his quiet town and what had happened in a home just off the University of Idaho's campus.
Seeing University of Idaho and Moscow talked about like all over the internet, it's like, I live there and this town never gets talked about, and all of a sudden it's everywhere.
To this day, people are still processing the deaths of Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. Kathy Pemberton says trauma still lives in the streets of Moscow.
The loss is still there and the pain is still there.
Nothing can change the tragedy that happened last November, but Pemberton says bringing someone who may be responsible to justice is a proper step toward healing.
It's important that the person who has done something evil is properly convicted, tried, and punished for that crime, for that evil thing, because that begins the process of healing.
The murder suspect appeared in court Monday. There, a judge entered a plea of not guilty and scheduled his trial to begin in October. People say they're hopeful the state can bring this case to a proper and just end.
Hopefully this will all come to a closing soon.
I'm ready to be patient and wait and trust and hope that the state will carry out its proper responsibilities.
Yesterday, I was also down here in Moscow talking to people in the community. One man told me him and his neighbors don't talk about the suspect unless there's a major court update. So Moscow may be in for a quiet summer until the trial begins as scheduled in October. From downtown Moscow, Janelle Finch, KREM 2 News.
At this time, it is unclear how long this portion of Highway 27 is going to be closed as investigators continue to piece together this crash. Washington State Patrol says 4 people were crossing the highway when they were hit. WSP says it doesn't appear the driver, a 17-year-old girl, was impaired. All 4 pedestrians were hurt, including an adult and 3 children under 10. We do know the youngest children were taken by life flight or ambulance.
There are serious injuries to the 2 of the children. They're being treated at local hospital.
Washington State Patrol does note that this part of the highway doesn't have any crosswalks, but it is still a popular spot for walkers and joggers. In Spokane Valley, Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
It's been an emotionally draining 24 hours for Josh Hendricks and his family. He says following last night's accident, his wife and 2 sons, 11 months old and 11 years old, have minor fractures and bruises. But his 2.5-year-old son, who was ejected from a stroller at the time of the accident, is currently in critical condition with brain swelling. A single moment almost changed Josh Hendricks' life forever. Just after 8 p.m. Tuesday night, Josh learned his wife and 3 kids were hit by a car.
My wife video called me to let me know what was going on. And at the moment of the call, it was my son Thor was getting CPR, to bring him back because he had no pulse at that time.
Josh says he was in Seattle when his wife called. He says he immediately got on the next available flight home.
The only thing that kept going in my mind was, gotta get home, gotta let him still be alive when I get there.
Baby Thor is alive, thanks in part to Miranda Henry.
I've been CPR certified since I was 16.
Henry says she was one of the first on scene and performed CPR until first responders arrived.
Just kind of focused on the little boy. I kind of pictured my daughter at first because I got a daughter the same age. Freaked me out a little bit. And then just focused on the mom. I thought about her. She's standing right above me.
In addition to 2.5-year-old Thor, Josh's 11-month-old and 11-year-old sons were also injured. Josh says his youngest is still under observation at the hospital. His oldest was discharged with minor leg fractures.
God's at our core, and so the biggest thing for us is just maintaining our hope and belief in God and knowing that, our children are in His hands.
Josh says this is a route his wife has walked before, but this was the first time with the kids. According to the Washington State Patrol incident report, the family failed to recognize the oncoming vehicle at the time of the collision. WSP says the 16-year-old driver will not face criminal charges. A family member has started a fundraiser to help the Hendricks family cover current and future medical expenses. A link to that fundraiser is currently available on our website, krem.com. From Sacred Heart Medical Center, Janelle Finch, KREM 2 News.
Well, things look drastically different here inside the fence at Camp Hope. Just take a look behind me. A lot more empty space, and we have seen at least one RV being towed out. We are waiting on another one to be pulled away. Jules Helping Hands says they are on track to have this completely vacant in a month. There are still those who call this plot of Washington DOT land home for now, but maybe not for long.
We're getting closer to the end of Camp Hope.
The remaining 20 campers here could be out, or at least close to housing, within a month.
We're looking towards the end of June to have housing lined up or offered to individuals.
It is a much different view inside the fence than even a month ago. For Julie Garcia, it's a sign of hope.
The emptiness of the camp signifies, one, a reduction in the footprint of this neighborhood, but also the real help that is given and being offered to people experiencing homelessness.
Help former campers like Henry Grisby III say.
So this is the Audi Quattro that I acquired.
Set them up for another chance at life.
That's from just hard work. I guess I would say that's what they tell me is from my hard work.
Grisby had been in Camp Hope for around a year, watching it grow to more than 600 people.
It was like an unruly college campus.
Now he's graduated from this place, but also from a job skills class and into a job and his own apartment.
It's a sense of stability. That's something that I think was one of my barriers, was being stable somewhere and having, you know, my stuff, my property, me, and a good state of mind.
The work isn't done. The state continues to collaborate with the city of Spokane in court. Brian Coddington agrees the two sides are close to an agreement on camp's closure.
We expect that shortly with the state we'll have a joint filing with the judge regarding a plan to close and a date certain to close.
For Grisby and so many others, Camp Hope's already shrinking in the rear view, and who knows what's ahead.
And I got this Audi to do that with me. We just stay in our own lane, try to go forward, that's it.
So as for what happens with this lot after the remaining campers are out, WashDOT tells me that is still in the planning stages, but you may see these fences around the area for a while after the camp is closed. Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
Every appliance, everything you could find in a house, in some cases becomes evidence.
At first glance, it looks like a storage unit. Rows and rows of boxes, possibly holding key evidence in a murder case.
Some of it dating all the way back into the 1950s.
And for the last few years, it's where cold case detective Sergeant Zach Storment begins the critical process of searching for new leads in old DNA.
There are answers in here.
There are.
The problem is, the longer DNA evidence sits in these boxes,
there will become a point where all this evidence degrades to a point it's not useful.
Have you ever run into a case where you have come and you haven't been able to use any of that DNA evidence because it has degraded?
Yes, we have had examples of cases we reviewed where we have not been able to find the DNA.
Detective Storment is now slowly working his way through SPD's roughly 75 cold case homicides, looking for evidence that holds the most promise. He wants to digitize DNA evidence now before it becomes unusable.
Not all are going to be solved through a genealogy investigation, but we're focusing on those first.
So the theory is that once it's digitized, then it could be analyzed even 50 years from now.
Exactly, yeah. Once the bio is converted to a digital format, it really opens doors as far as what we can do.
But the process is a slow one. Storment says SPD has already set aside $50,000 in the budget to digitize DNA evidence. The biggest challenge is not money, it's time and manpower.
A case that's been solved.
Right now, there just aren't enough detectives to sort through all this evidence and help the DNA scientists collect samples.
And whenever a current homicide or other things come up, we have to set this aside, and when you have to stop and start again, it's not the most efficient way to do things.
So how long do you think it could take?
At the pace we're going right now, I hate to say it's going to take more than 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not going to happen quickly, but we're picking what we think are the most sensitive ones first and dealing with those right away.
Right now, he's working on several cases, including the disappearance and murder of Millie Doe. Her body was found in 1984 by fishermen along the Spokane River. Her head, hands, and feet had been cut off, and for 40 years her identity was unknown. Until just a few months ago, through new genetic technology, she was finally identified.
Her real name is Ruth Bell Waymeyer.
Police are still investigating who killed Ruth, but Detective Storment tells me this new crack in the case never would have been possible without digitizing old evidence.
DNA is going to be the only thing that opens it up again.
That new technology is also what led to the department's biggest cold case success so far, solving the 1959 murder of 9-year-old Candy Rogers.
These are the mints that were found along the road when the search first started for her.
And even though the suspect and Candy's parents passed away years ago, the answers meant everything for Candy's relatives still living today.
A relief, a shock, and I still can't thank them enough for what they did.
These things are like a time capsule.
But Detective Stormont knows back here in storage, there are dozens more cases still waiting for answers.
Do you worry that in the 10 years it will take to even build that database, there's more evidence that will no longer be usable?
Yeah, I'm afraid that there's going to be a case we'll open soon, or in the next couple of years we'll see things should have been done sooner.
But he tells me the work is important and will continue no matter how slow.
Whether it's 1959 or it happens tomorrow, law enforcement's never going to give up.
With a vote of 289 to 133, the Halt All Lethal Trafficking of Fentanyl Act passed the U.S. House of Representatives Thursday morning. Representative Kathy McMorris Rogers of Washington was one of the bill's many co-sponsors.
Illicit fentanyl is one of the greatest threats that we face right now as a nation, and so this is really targeting the fentanyl-related substances.
If passed, the Halt Fentanyl Act would classify all fentanyl as a Schedule I substance under the Controlled Substances Act. That's considered to be the most dangerous classification of drugs. A classification of all fentanyl substances as a Schedule I drug would allow for tougher penalties and possibly lead to more research related to fentanyl.
It would prevent many of these fentanyl-related substances from becoming street legal, and that's the important protection that we need so that law enforcement can get these substances off our streets.
Fentanyl does not care if you are a Republican or a Democrat. It doesn't care if you come from a family that is not divorced or a family that is divorced. Fentanyl will take whoever fentanyl can take.
At Spokane Alliance for Fentanyl Education board member Tracy Couture Richmond, the issue of fentanyl hits too close to home for her after her sister died almost 2 years ago from methamphetamine mixed with fentanyl. Now, with the bills passing in the House, she's seeing progress in the fight against fentanyl.
It gives me hope that there will be one less family that will deal with what we have dealt with over the last 2 years.
Now, the Halt Fentanyl Act will now pass on to the U.S. Senate now that it has passed the U.S. House. In the studio, Cody Proctor, KREM 2 News.
Well, the Spokane City Council decided to go forward with an engineering and cost study on the fluoridation of the city's water system in February last year. Now that the study is complete, the city will soon start taking public comment to determine the next steps. Now, Spokane voters have already rejected the fluoridation of Spokane's water 3 times in the past, but the city council is hoping the 4th time will stick. Now, 2 years ago, the city received a $600,000 grant to study the cost of implementing a fluoridation system. If the city decides to go forward with fluoridation, it will use a previously awarded $4 million grant to help set that system up. But before it gets to that point, council must approve a resolution declaring that the $600,000 study is complete and that it will be used in upcoming public discussions. That resolution will be introduced to council on June 12th and voted on June 26th. Now, during council's June 15th study session, the study consultant will be available to answer questions. Now, after all of this happens, the city council will open up discussion and public review of the study results. This will help council to determine the next steps. Of course, we'll keep you posted on when city council will be taking that public comment moving forward. Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
When you take a look at that national average, you can see Spokane is about $1 higher than the country's median, and over in Idaho, they're about 30 cents higher than the national average, but still that's about 60 cents cheaper between state lines. So why the difference in price between states just a few minutes apart? As mentioned, we spoke with a gas expert recently. Patrick DeHaan is the head of petroleum analysis for Gas Buddy, and this is what I learned.
Washington State now has a carbon tax. It has special gasoline. The West Coast is also a bit of an island when it comes to refineries.
So between that carbon tax and high tax on gasoline, Washington's prices are pushed up a lot higher than the national average. Location plays a major role as well. Idaho doesn't depend on the same sources as its neighboring states to provide their gasoline. They also don't have a carbon tax or high gasoline taxes.
And that's why if you're hitting the road this summer, no matter if it's crossing into Idaho or other states like Montana, or you're heading south into Oregon, be wary of those state lines because you can see big fluctuations between what prices are in one state versus another.
In my conversation with Patrick, he did tell me that he expects some type of relief at the pumps later this summer, in particular after Memorial Day weekend. He says gas transportation from the refineries our region relies on should see improvement. That could ultimately help lower those prices. Also, gas experts say before you fill up at any particular gas station, you want to go ahead and check around, shop around, because you might be able to find cheaper prices, and that also will help save you money, not only for Memorial Day weekend, but throughout the year. Reporting in Spokane, Brandon T. Jones, KREM 2 News.
This time last year, the future of Splashdown was uncertain, but now with new owners, laughter and fun may be returning to the slides behind me in as early as next month.
The water slides at Splashdown have been dry for 3 summers. Vandalism and graffiti are some of the only signs of life at the park. Summer 2022, estate managers had had enough. They began the search for a buyer who could take over. Now, Splashdown has a more promising future under new ownership. After being closed for 3 years, a new generation of Splashdown fans have emerged.
We just see it like all the time when we're driving on the freeway, and since we've moved here in 2019, my daughter has always wanted to go there, and it's been closed since then.
Nicole Bond says Splashdown would fit right in with her kids' other summer activities.
We go to Silverwood every year and, go camping all the time, so we're just out and about wherever we can go have fun.
KREM 2 attempted to contact the new owner, but was unable to reach them. Season passes are now available to purchase on Splashdown's website.
I also spoke to the city of Spokane Valley because the city owns the land that Splashdown is on. They say that they have not reached a land lease agreement with the new owners. They've been in contact, but again, that agreement has not been signed off on. A draft agreement hasn't even been proposed to council yet. The city says until that agreement is signed, business cannot operate. In Spokane Valley, Janelle Finch, KREM 2 News.
The Inland Northwest basketball community is mourning tonight following the death of former Gonzaga Director of Basketball Operations and Eastern Washington basketball head coach Jerry Krause. Krause, a college basketball Hall of Famer, had a long battle with colon cancer. He coached at Eastern for 17 years, where he won 292 games and helped the Eagles jump from the NAIA all the way up to Division I. He later spent 20 years at Gonzaga, helping build the program into a national powerhouse. Gonzaga women's basketball head coach Lisa Fortier spoke today about his impact at GU.
The people who say that Gonzaga is a people place, it's because of people like that. As far as basketball goes, Coach Krause didn't really coach here, but he was coaching people all the time. The coaches, coaching the coaches, they all felt like he was coaching them. I'm sure that Coach Few feels the same way. And so I think our staff, I think that it's just not the same. You have to have a person who, in order to make a place special, you have to have special people investing in the people who are still there. And so, I don't think it would be the same.
Gonzaga released a statement from men's basketball head coach Mark Few saying, quote, "I am sad to hear about the news of Jerry, but what a life he had. He had a big impact on all of us, especially Dan Munson, me, Billy Greer, Leon Rice, and those of us that kind of came up as young coaches back in the day. That's a great thing about Jerry. He had such a big impact on the game of basketball after his head coaching was done." A little under a year ago, Jerry Krause found out he was part of the 2022 College Basketball Hall of Fame induction class. I had the pleasure of speaking with Krause about his career that helped build the Inland Northwest into a basketball destination. He just wished that he would have been inducted a little earlier.
I have one complaint is you have to wait about 20, 30, or 40 years before you can earn that right. They didn't tell me about that.
It was a long time coming for Jerry Krause. 17 years spent at Eastern Washington as a head coach, where he won 292 games and built the Eagles from the ground up, overseeing a jump from NAIA to Division II and later to Division I. After EWU, Krause spent 20 years at Gonzaga as the director of basketball operations, helping turn the kennel into what it is today.
I remember when we had our first game in here, you could take a basketball and you could try to throw it to the other bleachers, and you'd have to be a real good marked person in order to hit somebody, because there was nobody there.
Through his advanced analytics, Krause helped another program blossom, a remarkable basketball career that almost didn't begin when he was student teaching in Iowa.
I just thought, I don't even know whether I like teaching, let alone coaching. And then, I'm not kidding, the minute I walked on the floor, it was magic. It was like I knew it the first week of my first year, and I've never lost that satisfaction since.
The magic for him wasn't about wins or losses. It was about being the person he needed in his life early on.
My dad committed suicide when I was 4, and my mother died when I was born. So I really didn't have any mentors, and when I got them, it was just a true blessing. And that's why I've been so hung up on the value of mentoring, because I know that saved my life and made my career.
When Krause was inducted into the Hall of Fame, he was flooded with messages of congratulations from former coworkers and players, providing proof that he was the man he wanted to be, a life worthy of the Hall of Fame.
Guys who I didn't even knew I existed, and they said, "You changed my life." That's pretty sobering and really a great sense of thankfulness and gratitude for that.
Jerry Krause was 87 years old. He will certainly be missed.
There are plenty of options to get from point A to point B, but a new proposal may bring Spokane to point EV.
It's a pilot program that would give Spokane the opportunity to bring some car share electric vehicles to the city.
Bainbridge Island company Zev Co-op is planning to launch its zero-emission car share service in the Lilac City, one that checks a goal in the city's Sustainability Action Plan.
It specifically was talking about encouraging ride-share companies that were electric to come to the city and, start a program here. So here it is, and here's the program, and here's the opportunity.
Anyone could rent the EV for about $16 an hour with a monthly user fee. Zev offers even cheaper income-qualified rates.
So it's like REI, it's a co-op, and so it's open to the public, but they do have membership opportunities that would lower the cost.
This pilot program will likely start off with just a couple of those rental depots to bring a jolt to neighborhoods that need it, like here near Gonzaga or in East or West Central.
Part of the grant criteria is serving underserved neighborhoods and rural areas as well with electric vehicle rideshare.
Nonprofit civic research group Urbanova helped Zev and Avista apply for a WashDOT Zero Emissions Access Program grant, which could award up to $200,000 to jumpstart this service.
We'll hear this summer and then hopefully implementation in the fall if we were awarded.
Shannon Mowdy, KREM 2 News.
Thank you for joining us here on KREM 2 Plus for a look at some of the biggest news stories of the past week. For the most current news throughout the weekend, you can watch our latest newscast right here on KREM 2 Plus. Just look for them in the bottom navigation menu. I'm Tim Pham. Thanks for watching.